Popcorn Junkies, we're about to review On the Basis of Sex. Mimi Leder, that's the director's film portrait, biographical legal drama about the Supreme Court Justice who's currently on the Supreme Court. She's one of the judges fighting
She's come
Trump.
back out of retirement.
Yeah, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This stars Felicity Jones, who I'd last seen in Rogue One, and Armie Hammer, who we love from The Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
Also starred Justin Theroux and had a supporting part by Kathy Bates. The weird thing about this film from the get-go is that there's been a documentary, which I haven't yet seen, called RBG, which is a documentary about
her.
You know, she was a lawyer. One of the first women to go to Harvard Law School, which was a law school for men. I entered this film thinking this is a story that has to be told.
Yes.
And it's an important story. Her role, how would you sort of pithily, for people who don't know, her role was revealing the inherent sexism of legislation.
To fight against
and how everything is skewed against women on the basis of
Yes.
sex. And what's clever about the film is she has to set out to prove this by showing how a prejudicial law is punishing a male worker.
Yes, that's the only way she could do it.
It's that funny thing where you have to look at how it affects someone else.
Yeah.
You know, the very gender that is oppressing you.
Yes.
In order to justify the legal system, to look at it and go, oh, okay, actually, so much legislation.
Which in itself is just so wrong.
I saw the trailer for this and I wasn't excited.
No.
What did you think going in? Were you excited by the prospect of this? I can't say I was.
No, I wasn't excited at all. I'm not mad keen. I'm very interested in the person in real life.
Yeah.
And I haven't actually seen the documentary for that, which I want to. I'm not mad keen on Felicity Jones anyway.
Neither am I.
Although I'm interested in the whole thing of, I know she was like revolutionary in a way. But no, there was nothing that had made me think it's going to be a must-watch.
No. My concern then immediately ratcheted up about 85 levels after watching the first 3 or 4 shots. And I thought,
walking amongst a group of men.
Yeah, and I thought, okay, it's very sort of standardly shot. By about 15 minutes in, I thought, we've got 2 scenes here. We've got Armie Hammer brought in for a week to lie around on a bed and in an apartment to cut this. All I could feel from the beginning of this film was how the production manager had sorted out their shooting blocks.
Oh, really?
That's all I could see.
Oh, how
It's like
interesting.
she's walked in here, she's walked in there. I could feel it was a formulaic process from the get-go of telling a story that I felt looked like a must-make on paper.
Yeah.
It's Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yes, exactly.
But then when they got going with it, it became, I felt it was like watching someone run
Through mud.
and start to get caught in quicksand.
Yeah.
And quite quickly, I felt I was watching a film about accountancy. I was horrified.
Were you?
I mean,
Beyond
horrified.
horrified. Oh, okay.
I was horrified by how badly written it was. I was horrified by how something so important and compelling was made dull. I thought no imagination or thought had been given to how we could make this a cinematic experience.
No, I think that's very true.
I wish I'd seen the documentary. I thought Felicity Jones, I've never sat comfortably with her. I thought she made a good fist of trying
Yeah, I did.
spark it.
Yes, I did.
I didn't believe her relationship with Armie Hammer.
No, I didn't.
I felt he was brought in and literally the baby was plonked in. I mean, it sounds really odd. Every scene felt like it had just happened. And what I mean by that was that they just set for lights and they turned over.
Isn't that interesting?
And it felt, so in that sense, it reminded me of the films of the 40s and 50s when there's a fast turnover in a studio where they've got the set, right down to, so Justin Theroux looked like he had a wig on and he'd walked off. He was orange. He looked like, but he looked like the Beau Bridges character from Airplane.
Yes, he did.
I was expecting him to come in from the top of shot, going, "Let's chose the wrong day to give up glue sniffing."
Lloyd Bridges.
Lloyd Bridges.
Yeah,
Sorry, Lloyd Bridges. I chose the wrong day to give up amphetamines.
He was exactly like that.
And he would run from shot to shot.
He would. He refused to give up. Let me ask you a question, because
go for it.
I agree with everything you said so far, and I feel this might be a weakness in myself.
Right.
The ending in the courtroom. It all hinges on this case, as Mark said.
Yeah.
And I felt more or less everything Mark's just said about the beginning of the film, and you suddenly realise that it's going to be boring. I mean, I haven't mentioned the music, which was dire. The music was absolutely awful. It kept swelling at the wrong, inappropriate moments.
I thought Sam Waterston was quite good as the sort of malevolent head, but he was so sort of
old. He looked like he was going to die.
But it was so obvious.
It was.
It was all too obvious. There was no subtlety to, not really how anyone played it, but there was no subtlety written into any of the parts.
No. I mean, so in that sense, I get your point about accountancy. Not that I'm anti-accountancy.
No, I'm not at all. No.
But no, where it got me, and this is obviously different because it didn't get you at all, and I'm very prone to this, as you know. The legal arguments I got fascinated by, and the fact that you have to go back to, and I can actually remember some of those names because I was a feminist. And you have to refer back for the Abortion Act. We had to refer back to Roe and somebody. I suddenly became fascinated by the legalese in the last bit.
Well, I think you're right, but I thought that's where it got most interesting. I mean, I think all of that stuff is fascinating, and where I became really quite intolerant of the film was I thought this film is now just working on the assumption that we can't find this uninteresting because of the nature of it. It is fundamentally important and critical to the contemporary state of being a woman in America. I mean, this is the fundamentals here. This is on the basis of sex. I get it. I've bought into it. I accept it. All I was looking at my ticket thinking was, why the fuck didn't I go and see the documentary? Because for me, this film it didn't take any of its responsibilities seriously. To make a film
I agree
that engaged me emotionally. I wasn't engaged emotionally. I didn't really care. I thought Armie Hammer, who I thought I really liked, but I'm beginning to wonder whether he's very one note. I thought his husband wearing a pinny act. I just found it so two-dimensional that literally he'd walk in and be like, and he was reaching. It's like photos from the 50s, but not good photos from the 50s.
I love him, but I have
a huge soft spot for him. He's almost so long that he doesn't naturally sit within shot.
No.
Or the set.
Why would they get, unless Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who we know is a very tiny woman, and she is a very tiny woman, the woman that played her. Armie Hammer is 6'5". I mean, why would they?
It was remarkable contrast. I mean, and then I thought of you a lot, 70s feminism, when she was in those sort of, those, what would you call them, seminars where they were talking, she was teaching, the sort of more proactive women of the 70s.
There was a moment or two as well from the daughter. There were some lines from the daughter, especially in the beginning where she wasn't getting on with her mom. They were fighting. And of course, the daughter was me in the sense of the stuff that she was saying to her mother, and sort of wonderful lines that I can remember sort of thinking myself about her mother not being what she thought she was. She was in a consciousness raising group. She was not revolutionising the thing that she thought she was. And but then they turned that around as well, and the daughter became part of the group. The whole thing ended with everybody saying, we're not doing this for us, we're doing it for our daughters. And then suddenly she'd been brought into the whole, I felt she lost her spark in her thing.
I thought the most interesting sequence was in the court at the end.
Oh, I did.
It really was, and that for me was the moment, really, wasn't it?
They could have shown just that, actually.
Yeah, and I felt they could have, in a sense, my preferred approach to this film would have been to have had a much more extended and in-depth court scene that framed the film. And you came out of that to tell her story of how she got to there. So it was almost like a told in flash forward or flash back. I thought that would have been a far more interesting way of doing it, because as it happened, you then had these justices looking at her, and they'd cut to single shots of them as she said stuff. You'd see them perform. I mean, the directing on this film I thought is ghastly. And you'd cut to close-ups of the judges going, I've never seen it like that.
That must have been really difficult to act, actually.
I've really never seen it like that. And I thought, this is really trite, and this is really unsophisticated. It's a very unsophisticated film.
Which is unfair, because she is an amazing...
incredibly sophisticated woman. It's one of those situations, and I used to do this a lot. We'd often pitch programmes to broadcasters about famous people or important people. And one of the things I remember being taught at film school is every story can be a great story. But not every story necessarily translates to a great film.
No.
And there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is sometimes it can be told better as a documentary. I'll rephrase that. Her story could have been told fictionally, but in a far more engaging, cinematic, creative way. I'm looking to be emotionally engaged. I mean, I know Nadia would have run for the doors on this, because you go in on the assumption this is a really important subject matter, and that's where I felt a con and I felt a real letdown, because I thought, hang on a minute, you're not taking your responsibility seriously here as filmmakers, because I'm now going to have to stay here, and I've got to be. I was even thinking I'm going to have to be careful how I am stern with this film, because I don't want to be seen to be diminishing the importance of her.
No.
What did you think of the final shot?
Well,
where you have Felicity Jones walking up the stairs of the Court of Justice, or the Supreme Court, and we cut to another shot, and the real Ruth Bader Ginsburg is, bless her, very old, walking up the steps.
I don't know what to say about that.
I mean,
it was her moment of being up in Hollywood. I don't know what to say.
Well, no, but for me, that
apparently
was
she herself says that she enjoyed it.
Well, I'm sure she did. Bless her. I'm sure she did. But at the end of the day, it's one of those ideas that you would jot on a piece of paper, making a film and go, "Oh no, get rid of that." No. It's a bit cliched and it's awful.
Yeah,
I thought it was awful. The whole experience for me diluted and diminished her contribution. Yeah. Which is clearly significant, and her continued contribution to American.
It almost makes one wonder how it could have diluted that so much.
I know.
I mean, so that you and I, who are both fans of what she's doing,
absolutely,
and going in with the greatest interest, and in my case, going through the history and everything, and then suddenly I was slightly turned around by the actual court scene purely because of the legalese, what they were talking about, and I got interested in the cases. That didn't last long. You have this terrible final shot of poor Ruth herself. So that destroyed that bit of it. The whole beginning is masses and masses of shots of her walking along with millions of men. We get it. We get it.
Cliche ridden. I thought it was a cliche ridden film, but I thought that, and it was just insipidly written. I felt for the actors. They were giving. I do think Felicity Jones made as good a fist as she could have. I just thought it was a poor show. It was a very poor show. There were
things that were said that I thought, why didn't you explore that more? And most of them came out of Justin Theroux's mouth, actually. Things like,
God, he was like.
I know he was extraordinary.
Strange character.
I mean, I actually couldn't take my eyes off him though. Could you?
He was very watchable. He was watchable, but he sort of had a wig, and he was busy. Chose the wrong day to give up.
He was so.
Chose the wrong day. Hang on, I've got to do that. Chose the wrong day to give up glue sniffing. I mean, he was like a maniac in the middle of the film.
Because I would have just roared.
I mean, another performance I thought was ghastly was the man whose case that she takes on to try and prove. You know, the guy who's been prejudiced against for caring for his wife. He's always
the man that plays those.
He was awful. He was. It was like, oh, thanks for sorting it. You know, how can I trust? But you said, I mean, scriptwriter, hell.
Dereliction of duty, that.
Dereliction of duty. But it has, and this is my point to anyone who's interested in the Ruth Bader Ginsburg story.
Go and see
absolutely,
the documentary.
and we haven't seen it, but I really want to go and see it, because I thought I really want to get into the detail. I thought they could have.
Oh no, let me just go back to the thing where I say some were. I wanted to know more, and they just left those on the floor. Things like. Somebody said at one point, that she's saying those sort of things because essentially they were making a big deal of the fact that she was a professor rather than a lawyer, and that meant that she looked at things in a different way, and I suppose she could explain things. They made a big thing of that and then just left it.
Yeah, I agree.
And I thought, well, I'd have liked that explained to me more. I mean, the things that they were showing me were facile.
Absolutely. So I went to the cinema with a heavy heart, not having liked the look of the trailer, went in, and within the first 15 minutes, I really try hard when a film starts to deliver the very thing I feared it's delivered. I then enter a sort of new part of watching the film where I go, no, I'm going to really try and see the merits in this. It lost me. I lost interest. I was bored. I was horrified. I was clawing at my head. I was desperate to get out. I could hear the palpable frustration of the audience.
Could you?
Yeah, they were extracting a laugh from some of the earlier comments in Harvard. And they wanted a good night out at the cinema. They weren't getting it here. It was facile is the right word, but I do go back to I think they really dropped the ball, and I think they went for some really lazy choices. They made some lazy choices in terms of the storytelling, in terms of the way they set up the scenes. I felt the hand of how they'd block shot it. I mean, that's a really technical term, but I felt how they'd kind of those are all the scenes in the flat. They were all shot in 1 week. Spread across the film. Those are all the shots at Harvard University, shot in 1 week. And so it felt like film by numbers. And I think the memory of her deserves something a little bit. Because she's in it, as soon as you put the subject in a film, hagiography springs to mind. And it's not that you want to look at the sort of all the negatives too, but you want authenticity in it. So I felt immediately, as soon as I saw her walk up the stairs, well, that's why. They could only go so far. They couldn't particularly show her as doing anything wrong or
No.
perhaps questionable because
No.
they've got her breathing down their shoulder.
No,
And she's
no.
a fucking Supreme Court judge. She'll have
Yeah.
your guts for garters.
I mean, exactly. I mean, Justin Theroux kept saying things like, they all kept saying what a formidable arguer she was, and we didn't see that.
Well, I thought she was as weak as hell. I
mean,
thought her husband, she kept leaning
she's
on
formidable,
Armie.
and then
But everyone kept saying, Armie, you do it.
yeah, exactly.
I didn't see, yeah, you're right. There was no, I didn't see any of the formidable, erudite.
I mean, the fact that this woman is standing against Trump almost, the only
Yeah.
person in the world. Come on, you've got to be able to show
absolutely.
us something.
I don't feel like I've seen the portrait of a woman who can stand up
No.
to Trump. I feel like if Trump sneezed, she'd blow away in
No,
dust.
they all told us she was formidable,
Yeah.
and we saw nothing
Yeah,
of it.
absolutely. So I would give this, I'm sorry to say, 2.5 out of 10.
I would give it, and I'm no idea what I'm saying this, 3.6.
I love that. 3.6.
For some unknown
Why-
reason,
why-
he's taken it up from 5. Is Justin Theroux keep coming? I think he's turned into a
Yeah,
comedy
viewing
for
Justin
me.
Theroux as a comic character makes the film infinitely more enjoyable. Go and
Exactly.
watch it for Justin Theroux's very odd, energetic turn.
And why is he orange, guys? He's so orange.
So 3.6
Yes.
for an orange Justin Theroux.
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.